Here at Railroads, we start all of our presentations acknowledging the traditional lands we are located upon. So, Railroads University, we acknowledge that the campus is located on the traditional lands of the Kusepsum and Lekwungen ancestors and families. There has been a long, long history of teaching, learning, and gathering on these lands, and it's with great gratitude that we are able to work, live, learn, and play on these lands with the Indigenous and non-Indigenous students, faculty, and staff. My name is Selena Kunar, and I am so excited to be here today and help click through the presentation as we learn so much more about our Master of Arts and Graduate Diploma in Educational Leadership and Management. The star of our show today is Dr. Frederic Fovet, our program head. Hi, Frederic. Thanks for being with us today.
Hi there, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm the program head of the MELM program, and I also teach on the MELM program, so I can offer both perspectives today. Nice to meet you all.
So you've learned a tiny, tiny bit about who we are. We would love to learn a lot more about all of you. So if you feel comfortable, let's take that chat box for a spin. Let us know, where are you joining us from today? What brought you to our webinar? And maybe what are you hoping to get out of today's session? That'll let us know who's in the room and the types of information you're looking for. So while folks start typing in the chat box, I'm going to continue on with how we're going to spend our time together today. So next, we're going to head into an exploration of the Royal Roads University experience, talk about our programs in depth, and then cap off with a quick overview of our application process and the requirements of these programs as well. Of course, we'll leave time for questions and conversations at the end of the formal presentation today, but please use the chat box and ask questions as things come up for you. So speaking of our chat box, I'm going to navigate over and see who we have with us today. So of course, Frederic, I'm here tuning in from Victoria. Although my background is a bit deceiving, I am not on campus, though still within the lands of the Lekwungen and Sanghees ancestors and families. We have Lisa with us. So Lisa is one of our wonderful enrollment advisors, who's also joining from here, Victoria in Saanich, BC. And Lisa is so exciting to have on our call because she's in our chat box helping answer any questions that come up for you. So questions about our application process, this program, anything else about Royal Roads, Lisa is our person. So feel free to pop those in the chat box to start connecting with Lisa. We have Renee from Alberta, possibly interested in starting my master's in education and leadership, and also interested in FMNI. Thanks so much for being here, Renee. We have, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm most definitely going to pronounce your name wrong. I see you're joining. Did you want to unmute and introduce yourself?
Thanks, Selena. It's pronounced Elan.
Elan, thank you so much for being here today from High River, Alberta, Treaty 7 territory. We'll be returning to the classroom in the fall and would like to expand my leadership possibilities through the MELM program. Well, thanks so much for being here. Let's dive in so we can get to start talking about the program. So while we are all living online these days, we still wanted to give you a quick snapshot of what our campus looks like. So in the top left corner here, you can see Hatley Castle. This is probably our most iconic building, as its claim to fame is being in movies such as X-Men, Deadpool, and The Descendants, which is a Disney franchise. Right beside our castle are our gardens. So here we have our Japanese gardens, but we also have our Italian gardens, our rose gardens. These gardens are a beautifully curated space by our team here and is well loved by not only our students, staff, and faculty, but the greater community as well. Taking a quick turn from the gardens, you find yourself at Esquimalt Lagoon. This lagoon is actually a registered bird sanctuary, so there are always critters there keeping it busy. And we would be amiss to talk about our power of our place without talking about online learning. So Royal Roads has been a leader in online education for over 25 years. So the power of our place is not only within this beautiful physical space, but within the transformative environments we're able to create online as well. And we'll talk a little bit more about what the online learning component looks like within this program shortly. Talking about our classrooms being both physical and virtual, something that transcends both spaces are the people who are joining you inside those rooms. So we are so lucky to have what we call scholar practitioners, faculty who are not only academic experts in their fields, but those who are out in the world putting into practice what they're teaching in our classrooms. You also have some other folks in your classroom, your cohort members. Here at Railroads, many of our programs subscribe to the cohort learning model, and that means you're going to start your program with your selected group of learners, and you're actually going to move through together course by course. This is, again and again, one of the most exciting features of our program that our alumni are so excited to share about. I'm very lucky in this role that I get to connect with alumni often, and it's so exciting to hear years after graduation, we're still having Facebook groups that are live, WhatsApp chats that are very vibrant, and when possible, folks come together for yearly get-togethers as well. So this group is not only an academic support throughout your program, but blossoms beautifully into a professional network as well. And again, we'll talk a bit more about the cohort and that experience in a few slides here. Something else that's really exciting about this program is that the Mountain program is now a Z degree. So that means it's a zero textbook program. This program, along with one other on our campus, the Master of Arts in Learning and Technology, are actually some of the first programs in North America to go textbook free. So this was really important to us because we understand that textbooks can be a really significant burden on students. So our approach in making sure this program was able to become textbook free represents our proactive and purposeful approach to supporting our learners. So in this program, the way students access course materials is through open educational resources, ebooks, journal articles, all available through RRU's library and other free digital resources. So why don't we start talking about the program itself? I'm going to pass the microphone over to you, Frederic.
Thank you, Selena. So welcome all. I'm going to try and go through a few slides, give you as much information as possible about the program without overwhelming you. I'm going to try and walk that fine line with giving you just enough information, but not bombarding you with too much. Before we begin the slides, even I'd like just to come back to the three facts that Selena stressed about the program. The cohort model. I've taught elsewhere, so comparing it to other masters elsewhere, really, it's one of the only masters you're going to have where you are going to be with the same students throughout your program. No mix and matching, you're not jumping from class to class and with different people. You actually are with the same student that you register with, you go through residency and they follow you all the way till graduation. So incredible opportunities to form networks and rich collaborative relationship that often turn into employment opportunities. To be honest, I can see in the last cohort that's finishing where people are sharing job opportunities, facilitating interviews for each other in each other's schools, and really a rich network of professionals really that arises from this program. The next feature is the scholar practitioner. So Celine talked about this, but it's also exceptional in the sense that in most faculty you would be taught by core faculty, which means that your instructors would be people who used to be in the classroom, but then have switched on to academia at the time of their PhD. We work with instructors that are actually PhD holders, but still involved in the field to create that osmosis that I'll be talking about in the coming slides, where we want them to be able to give you examples and illustrations directly from the field, and also to understand the difficulties and challenges that you have in applying that knowledge that you gain back into the field. So it's an exceptional relationship. You have 10 courses. I tend to teach twice on the program, so you have 8 other instructors, and the other 8 instructors are field practitioners. So they'll be able to put this in context and give you illustrations of the way the content actually fits in the field. It's very important at the moment, for example, with COVID, Instead of being something just conceptual that as academics we would understand from the outside, all of our instructors are in the field, in employment, battling the same challenges as you're battling, and able to contextualize all that understanding and knowledge directly in the field. The third feature is the tempo. In most other universities, you would have very busy semesters and then dead semesters when you go on, holiday, and universities go down to the summer beat. We structure it in a way that you really have one course at a time, apart from residency, when there's a bit of a push at the beginning when you take 2 courses, but after that, you only take 1 course at a time. So it's very steady tempo for those of you who are working, where you have a 9-week semester, 1-week break, another 9-week course, 1-week break, and so forth for the duration of your 2 years. It helps a lot. Certainly, it's a model that's been very popular for people who want to keep working while they do their masters. You never have that overload when you have too many courses. You never have that lull when you have nothing to do and you wish you could be doing something. So it's really a steady pace throughout the 2 years. We're going to switch the slides, Selena. Thank you. Sorry, I don't have the control of the slides. The general purpose of the program, I'm often asked. So the best way to describe it is it's really is a program, a master's that is there to cater for the needs of people who have been in the classroom, so mostly focusing on pedagogy, and who wish to do a progressive shift to a leadership position, where they will have to look at sometimes the same environment but from a different lens, this time from the lens of a leader. Sometimes people ask me, is it just for K-12 teachers? It really is for any educator that is in the progress or would like to shift from the perspective of pedagogue into the perspective of a leader. So in that sense, we've had obviously the bulk of our students are K-12 teachers, but we also have people who've worked in language schools, people who've worked in consultancy, in other environments, private environments, people who have gone in and out of the K-12 and the post-secondary sector, but always from a classroom perspective, and who are now looking towards leadership position within the field of education. We'll go on to the next slide. There are a lot of drawings and visual representations in this slide, so I hope you are comfortable with those. I'm going to talk to the slide a little bit. So lots of circles. Here we really, it's a graph that's trying to show the key values that the program integrates. So I'll start, really, we could start from anywhere, but enhancing self-awareness. Because you are all practitioners in the field, a lot of the program and encourage you to take a look at your own practice, look at the way you're doing things, and look at the way you can change the way you're doing things. So a lot of self-reflection, that's a very important part of the program. Working effectively with others. We have that networking and that social capital, that sort of network approach that is inherently built into the cohorts. And it's something that you practice throughout. So within each course, you would have team assignments. You have assignments where you're collaborating actively with others. That's part of the model. The program is inquiry oriented, and again, we've stressed the link between scholarship and the field. So all of the assignments and certainly your capstone project and the major work that you do during the program is really about changing your practice. So it's about taking that knowledge and taking the acquisitions that you make back to the field. And similarly, when we ask you to look at problems, we ask you to look at evidence that comes from the field and to bring this into the classroom and to work with that in your assignments and your exercises. So it's very much about applying knowledge to a real world context, and that's why it's inquiry based. Thinking critically and effectively, I think that's generally the key notion of any master's program. So for a lot of you who've not been in graduate education yet, that's what a master's degree does. It moves away from the descriptive. We don't so much give you content, but we give you the ability to handle content and to navigate content. So to think critically on situations, on new resources, on new situations that you're confronted with. Making evidence-based decision, again, that would go with being inquiry-oriented, so I'm not going to spend too long on that. Understand change management. As leaders, what you're confronted with in the educational field is trying to move organizations that are often very heavy organizations, very bureaucratic organizations toward change. So most of the courses are focused on not just the concepts and notions that you're being introduced to, but how do we manage change strategically in our institutions to be able to integrate these concepts into everyday practice and to create momentum. So that's a common theme. And then applying system thinking, well, that goes with the change management, because really you can't understand the complexity of change management in schools and school boards unless you understand the fact that they represent ecological landscapes where there are many, many stakeholders, and therefore all of the situations that you're in, all of the learning you do, and the assessment that you're asked to complete is always about that, about looking at things in context, not in a vacuum, but always looking at all the stakeholders involved, all the different dimensions, and how really sometimes even simple problems become very complex because of all the stakeholders involved and the different layers of connections between these stakeholders. And that's about it on this slide. So now we'll go to the next. So more circles. You're going to see the same, basically, most of the same themes around. Again, it's in the graph is trying to capture most of the values and the principles that are embedded into all of the courses. There's a few additional ones. I'm going to start quickly. Leading with technology. Obviously, a lot of those changes and the challenges that we're faced with now have a dimension of technology integration, whether it's communication with people, whether it's management of change, whether it's rethinking curriculum and things like this. So you will have discussions about technology in all of your courses, and you have a course specifically dedicated to what we call technology rich environments. I think it's what it's called. Involvement with parents and community. You have two courses in the program that talk about communication, because a lot of what we do in school obviously has to be in osmosis with the outside world. So both the parents, but also the wider community. And that again is the system thinking part, right? Nothing is just about the school. It's always about that osmosis with the rest of the community. Looking quickly, planning for school improvement, that would go back again to the evidence-based work. At the end of the program, you have a capstone project. So you have the chance for a 6-credit course to apply all of your learning into a real case study, basically, and to really do a small research project where you look at applying the knowledge that you've gained into your own context and to come up with something that you can then showcase. And then you have a supervision too, and that would go with, again, the communication. So we look at communications both externally and communications within the school itself. I think that we've covered. Oh, and I would just say that the central representation there as well is you see the 2 hours between leadership and learning. It's almost impossible to isolate these two things. So we are teachers and classroom practitioners, and we want to become leaders, but we are leaders in learning. And then we teach within an environment where we require leadership as well, right? So there's constantly that osmosis between the two concepts. And that's what the students become very comfortable doing the masters, is juggling both of these imperatives, that it's environments that have to be managed and led, but they are environments that are specifically looking to produce learning outcomes. So it's not leadership in a management position in industry. It's very much about education still. So it's about how these two concepts continuously connect throughout your program and throughout your reflection. I think we'll go on to the next slide, Selena. So this is another graph, a lot of visual representation, as I said, but this one is quite an important one, and it really constitutes the basis, the representation of the basis of your reflection right through the program, right through the 10 courses. When you come in as usually as teachers, and often students say, well, that's my main lens, it's just as a teacher. But you're not just teachers, you already have multiple lenses. So you have your lens as a teacher when you reflect on problems, but you are also learners because you're in the classroom. So you also are bringing that unique perspective on looking at a phenomenon, looking at a situation where you have the perspective of learners. And even before that, you are human beings, you're individuals. You don't come as a clean slate. You have had experiences, you've traveled, you have a culture, you have been a member of communities. So you also have that very individual lens. So those are normally after the first few classes, what we get the students to be comfortable with, right? The fact that the same problem can be looked at from different lenses. And we ask you to unpack these lenses in your reflection so that you see that your reflection as a person and as a member of the public is sometimes very different than your reflection as a learner. And is very different often than your reflection as a teacher and as an educator. And then through the program, we support you as you develop yet another lens, which is your lens as a leader, as a school leader, or as an educational leader. And those four perspectives sometimes clash, and they're not the same, they're not always aligned. And part of being in a master's program is to get comfortable navigating these four perspectives and making sense of them so that you can create a language and a discourse on practice that is cohesive, that actually is aware of these different perspectives and is able to organize them in a way that's again cohesive and makes sense to others, and also leads to action, leads to transformative action and to change management, as we've said. Thanks, Selena. We'll go on to the next slide. That's a question we get a lot, right? So how does the COVID-19 affect the program? So it's not affected us as much as it has affected other institutions, because we have always, as Selena said, been experts in online learning. For 25 years, it's been the focus. And so the program always had 8 courses that were online, fully online anyway. So really the only part of the program that's been affected is the original residency. And so last year we tackled this, wanting to really keep the same experience, but trying to transfer the experience into a different media and to be able to have the same outcomes for students. The aim of the residency is not so much that the course are taught face-to-face, but it's to create that cohesive networking with the students, because normally you are in the same residency building for 2 weeks, and you get to create all these relationships and these friendships that then last for 2 years. We've been able to do that quite well last year. And what we've done is really, we haven't changed the course format. So you still have 2 courses, which run for 8 weeks. And then we've created the residency, instead of being very intensive for two weeks, it runs right through the 8 weeks. And it means that really, it's almost like having a third course, although that one doesn't require assignments, doesn't require a heavy amount of attention or learning. It's that social chapter. So during the 8 weeks, as long as you're taking your 2 courses, but you also have activities that are basically creating social connections, getting to know each other, getting to talk about other things in the program, understand each other's world vision, and understand each other's background and cultures, and understand your work environments. And you do all that social networking right through the 8 weeks. It's taken a lot of work on our part, because it does need redesigning. So last year we really threw our hat in and decided to try and really create something unique, and it worked well last year. We had great feedback. So we're quite confident that this year it'll be very enjoyable as well. And for those of you who are looking beyond that, the aim is to return, obviously, health policy allowing to return to a full residency for 2022. And if the 2021 cohort wanted to indeed meet later on for a mini residency after the health orders are lifted, it would be a possibility as well. We can always look at that and see if there's a way along the program where we have an opportunity to bring you together so that you do meet face to face. But so far it's been very enjoyable, even for the cohort that went through this year, and they really, really enjoyed it. I'll go to the next slide, I think. Lisa had a question there. If the mini for them would be confirmed prior. Yeah, so the mini residency question was discussed with the dean, and it really would be a matter for the cohort. If the cohort as a majority felt that it wanted a mini residency, then we would facilitate that and find a way of making it happen. So it's not something that the program would impose. It's something that would be at the discretion of the cohort if they felt that they wanted to meet up physically. It does happen in other programs. I know that Mahil program has an end of program residency. They come back together for 3 days and enjoy it a lot. So it could be the sort of thing that we could float, so that for the 21 cohort, they would do things slightly differently, and they would actually get to meet physically at the end, having worked together all this time. So this slide is an overview of the program. So it's a 2-year program, 33 credits. And you also have the option of a graduate diploma, which is basically the same progression through the courses, but just for the first year. And then the students are able to graduate from the diploma at that point, instead of going on to year 2. There are 2 routes within the master program itself. There's a thesis option that has been launched this year. We have 4 students this year who are about to go into their thesis. So that is decided at the halfway point. If you're interested in a thesis option, you would not need to think about it now to apply for it. You apply for it at the end of course 3. So after the residency and after the end of the first course, the first fully online course, which is EDLM 510, which is Introduction to Research. For a purpose that's obvious, Introduction to Research gives people a pretty good idea if it's really what they want to dedicate themselves to, and if they're ready to launch into a thesis. But you would apply then. and it's adjudicated at the school level with my other colleagues and other programs, and then you'll get accepted or told that it's maybe not suitable during the course, the fourth core of the program. You do have that research component anyway, because all students take the capstone project at the end. So that would not be a fully fledged thesis, but you would do a research project for 6 credits. What's the difference? Well, the difference is that the thesis is very much an autonomous work that takes an entire year. So you do a lot of work on your own. The research is fairly intensive. The output, the product, the end product is much larger. Obviously, a thesis is something fairly lengthy. The capstone is normally a 5,000-word paper, which is produced including data analysis and data collection and data analysis, but you are supervised fairly intensively. It's still a course, so you still meet with your instructor on a weekly basis. You're guided very much through the process and have a lot less freedom in autonomy. So it's a sort of mini thesis, if you'd like, and does aim and achieve some of the same goals, but obviously not to the same scope or the same scale. If you wanted, so question we sometimes say, if you wanted to do the diploma and you were not sure and you wanted to commit to the diploma and then switch halfway through, it is a possibility. Normally, at any point through the diploma, a student can request admission to the master's. There is an internal process still of admission. And normally we just look at whether you are, you're performing in a satisfactory manner in the diploma. And I, as program head, would have the ultimate decision of whether we allow you into the master's program. But if you are doing well and your performance is satisfactory, there's no reason why you would not be allowed into your program if you change your mind halfway. So that's always a pathway into the program as well if you were interested. And sometimes people do take breaks. So we also have students who do the diploma, take a break, and then come back a year later. In that case, you do need to be readmitted to the program. You have to go through admissions, I think. But it is something, you're a known entity, right? You're asking for admissions on the program when we've already taught you for a year. So it's a fairly speedy process. We'll go to the next slide, I think. This is just a quick overview of your courses and the progression. So as you see, from 501 to 560, that's the common core. That's what everyone, whether diploma or master's or thesis, all students would take these 6 courses in order. And then halfway through is where certain of the options are available. So 501, learning for leadership from theory to practice, basically an introduction to leadership concepts, and leading for social justice, which I teach, is in the residency. Those are the 2 first courses you take in the first summer. And then after that, you start the tempo that we discussed, 1 course at a time with a 1-week break. So research for school improvement. If you are interested in a thesis at the end of that course, that's when you will apply. And then you take building and managing school communities. So that's the school relationship with the outside world, really looking at communication between school and communities, and communication with school leadership, that's more internal communication, so in relation to supervision and supervising staff. And then leading technological integration in school, that's the course that specializes in technology and technology integration and the use of technology for leadership as well. After that, thesis students then would go on and do the thesis with a supervisor. They have 2 courses, as you see. Advanced Research 6 LR and T600 is a course which is taken with all of the thesis students in all of the 3 programs in the school. So you would be with other students in other programs. And it's basically the course, a regular 3-credit course, where you are supervised and you design your research question. And then for the 690, you go into thesis mode, then you are the only student in that course with your supervisor. It then becomes a one-on-one sort of arrangement. For students who remain in the regular progression and want to finish the masters, if they're registered for the masters, they would take 570, curriculum and instruction, 580, supervision, 525, which is a sort of recap. It's a portfolio course, so it's an opportunity to create a professional portfolio and to synthesize a lot of the learning that you've done throughout the program. It's sort of a wrap up of all you've done. And which leads you into EDLM 610, which is a capstone project. And that is a 6-credit course. So then you would be with the same instructor for 18 weeks from that point on. And that would be your last course in the program. And we'll go to the next slide, Selena. Thank you. This is again the same, just a visual. There's a few things added here in the sense that you see the introduction to academic integrity and the link. So these are two online courses which are very unique to Royal Roads and to the School of Education Technology, though other schools have it as well. It's a non-assessed course, non-credit course, but which is compulsory. And it's basically to get you settled into Royal Roads because you are entering a new campus with new student services and library, a lot of support staff. You know, we have 3 coordinators within the office itself. And you get to understand all of these things through the link and the introduction to academic integrity. So they run parallel, I think. Introduction to academic integrity is self-paced. It's fairly quick. The link lasts a couple of weeks. They are modules. It's run by one of the program coordinators, and I pop in there every so often to do introductions and talk about a few things. The main idea is that you get to know your cohorts, get to know your staff and all of your support staff, get to know the platform that we use, a technological platform, so understand Moodle, understand Collaborate, understand all of the tools that we use, so that once you get into the courses, you are ready to go. You've reached a comfort level where we don't have to spend time introducing all that to you. You're ready to focus on content itself. And I think that's it. I think we can go on to the next slide, Selena. So I've got you as having to ask you every time. It is a Teacher Qualification Service approved program in BC. If you are interested in taking advantage of that, then you've got information there. And I think we need to, after that will be about IBO probably. Selena, is that the next slide? There we go. So you can take an IB certificate in leadership research as part of your program. The way which this is run is the IBO organization is satisfied that by doing the masters as structured within MELM, you are fulfilling their requirements for the certificate. So it doesn't require duplication of work. It just requires that you register for the certificate and also that you focus all of your large assignments on an IBO context. That really is the only requirement. So the concepts, the content, the skills acquisition is there and it's embedded into MELM. Bringing in the IBO context is your job. So the instructors won't necessarily be teaching you about IBO context. It's your role to then take your assignment and shift it to an IBO context and make sure that that reflection is situated within an IB context so that you're using the same concept, but you're using it specifically looking at an IB context. So in terms of if you're interested in IB Advanced Certificate in Leadership Research, it's really a matter of yourself registering for it. We have a program coordinator who gives you all the information, the reminders, the landing page, and so forth. You register for it during residency. And then at the end, once you've completed the masters, you go back to IBO and you apply for the award of the certificate. And we confirm with them that you have indeed finished the program and you've satisfied all of your requirements. There is a fee for this. I can't offhand, maybe listeners know how much it is. It's not large. It's not a fee that we collect. You pay that directly to IBO for the registration to the certificate. And I think that covers the award of the certificate itself. We don't vet admissions to the certificate. It's a decision that is students-based and student-centered. You decide whether the program is for you and whether you want to focus on the certificate itself. And we support you in that decision. Obviously, the Advanced Certificate in Leadership Research does normally assume that you have already worked in an IB context, or at least that you're very familiar with the IB context, because you will be having to situate all of your assignments into that. So Lisa didn't find a fee, but again, I know it's paid in pounds. I think it's about 125 pounds or something like this. Just I may be not exactly right, but it's around that range, and it's paid directly to IBO. Okay, Selena, I think we'll go on to the next one. Oh, that's back to you. So yeah, if you have any more questions, don't hesitate, or we can circle back to me at the end.
Thank you so much, Frederic. Yes, to echo Frederic's sentiments there, please, this is a great time to start popping questions in the chat box. If anything bubbled up for you as we talked about the programs, the courses, the format, we're just around the corner from wrapping up the formal piece of our presentation, and then we'll be jumping to those questions. So before we get to that question and conversation period, we're going to chat a little bit about the program requirements and application process. So to kick us off, we'll talk about the admission requirements. So here at Railroads, we have 2 admission pathways, our standard admissions as well as our flexible admissions. So on this slide here, you can see the requirements for our standard admissions. So applicants should be educational professionals with a 4-year undergraduate degree in a related field from a recognized post-secondary institution, as well as have a relevant work experience. Flexible admissions. We're so proud of flexible admissions here at Railroads because it highlights our commitment to knowing all about you, not just one piece of you. So flexible admissions is where we're able to have a more holistic application review process and understand not only your academic background, but your professional background, your personal background, all of the things that have come together to make you who you are today. So flexible admissions is for candidates with some undergraduate education and significant relevant work experience. I should note that all applications are assessed on a case-by-case basis. So if you're interested in what flexible admissions could mean for you, please connect with our offices, as we're always happy to help navigate unpacking flexible admissions. So the process itself, we have it outlined simply here. It begins with an online application. And that online application comes with a fee of $126.28. Once that online application is in, your portal opens up. This portal allows you to start submitting supporting documents to our offices for review. So for this program, supporting documents we require are official transcripts, a personal statement, a structured resume, and 2 letters of reference. Our website is a wonderful resource as you move through this stage of the application process, because you'll find tips and tricks for putting together your documents. For example, for your personal statement, some of the kinds of questions you should make sure are answered within that personal statement. For your structured resume, how your resume should be laid out to make sure that all of your accomplishments shine bright. And of course, more finer details like page counts and things like that as well. And then practical details as well. For example, how you can submit your official transcripts to our offices, as well as your 2 letters of reference. So again, you can
I'm gonna
always
jump
check
in
out our
just
website. Oh, sorry,
jump
Frederic.
in 1 minute about the personal statement, because I get to read those. Just often students are a bit puzzled about what should it include. So when we started, I said really we're geared at taking classroom practitioners towards a leadership position. So that's really what we want to see evidence in the personal statement, is why do you want to do that shift? It doesn't mean that you have to evidence leadership responsibilities already, but you have to show us, first of all, that you've had that classroom experience, that you've had that perspective as a pedagogue, and that you're shifting, perhaps because people invited you or encouraged you. Maybe your current principal is saying you should consider this. So all of that information is going to be really crucial in showing us that it has a meaning for you, that really it fits in within your career path. It's something that you are naturally going towards, and that this degree is going to facilitate that jump, because that's what we want to see. Again, it's a very sort of real world fit. We want to see that we are going to be able to support your learning and your development as you do that shift from one perspective to the other. So yeah, anything that it could be comments from a supervisor. It could be small experiences that you've had and you've really enjoyed it, and you think this is the time now when I'm shifting into that role and I need that those skills and that context. So don't hesitate. Put all that in the personal statement. It's really useful information.
Frederic, thank you. So we've talked about the requirements, we've talked about the process. Now we should talk about the upcoming intakes. So we actually are just around the corner from our next intake for this program. So it will begin January 14th, 2021, putting its application deadline at May 14th, 2021. So if you're interested in starting this year, we highly recommend getting in that online application so we know that you're interested in this program, and we can keep that in mind when looking at seats before we begin. If you're planning a little bit further out, we do have our 2022 deadline posted as well. So we have our program start date of June 13th, 2022, putting its application deadline at March 13th, 2022. We had a lot of questions about financial aid from those who registered for our session today, so we wanted to make sure we shared that information with you as soon as possible. So we have a wonderful financial aids and awards office here at Railroads who have their fingertips on resources available internally and externally as well. So if you have any questions about loans, awards, scholarships, or other types of fundings, please connect with our financial aid office. On this slide, you can see their website, but also their local and toll-free phone numbers as well. And we'll be sure to include that in the webinar follow-up today. So Enrollment Services, as we talk about follow-up, Lisa Murray has just been a wonderful example of the enrollment team we have on our campus who are eager to continue the conversation about this program or any others on our campus as well. So if you have any questions, you can connect with Lisa and her team at learn.more@royalroads.ca. And if you're joining us internationally, our international admissions and registration team is happy to help at learn.more.international@royalroads.ca. So that has brought us to the end of the formal PowerPoint presentation today. We'd like to note that the School of Education Technology actually has a really wonderful blog. So if you're interested in learning more about the school itself and what's going on with our faculty and some of our students, they are regularly posting on that page. So you can find them at set.royalroads.ca/blog. The most recent blog post was by a faculty member named George, who shared a list of top 10 good reads. It's each year published by the National Institute for Digital Learning, which is located in Ireland. And it shares articles focused on general areas of blended and online learning and digital education. So if you're interested in our blog and learning more, feel free to give it a swing. So I'm going to close down the PowerPoint presentation, and then let's get to answering some questions. So if you have any questions, feel free to start popping them in our chat box. And I'm going to navigate myself over there now.
Maybe I can fill the gap while answering two questions we often get. I know we often get questions about class size. So normally the cohort size is about around 25. Last year during COVID, we peaked a little bit and we went up to 30, but normally it's about at 25 on most years. So nice cohort size because you are with these people for 2 years. You don't want it to be too small either. Don't want it to be too large, and it seems to hit the mark every time. Then we have a lot of questions about international students, how the ease of joining if you're an international students. We do have students who are located elsewhere in the world every year. Even if they're not necessarily international students, we have a lot of Canadian teachers who are taking MELM while teaching abroad, so teaching in international school overseas. So we always have a few students who are in China or around the world, mostly in Asia. It works fine. Really, you would discuss basically with your instructor at the start of every course what the time difference is, and then your instructor always try and find times that work in terms of hitting that end of the day session where everyone is wrapping up in Canada and those students are free elsewhere. So that's not been a problem at all. There's a lot of technological tools are integrated at Royal Roads into the teaching, so most of that is easy to access when you're overseas. It does require a little bit of a quality internet connection. I won't lie there, because so much of what we do is done online. So if you're international, it's well worth maybe investing in or definitely making sure you're always somewhere where you have a good connection when you're logging into your class, because a lot of what we do is synchronous or asynchronous, but still requires that online component. And it's a great match because often in the group work, again, you get to talk to people who are doing your job but doing it elsewhere, doing it in another jurisdiction, another country, and there's some great exchanges there in terms of practice and in terms of context. So it's been really, really rewarding to have a lot of international perspectives within the program as well. That's about it, I think. Questions I normally get asked.
Thanks, Frederic. One question we had in the registration page that touches on group work, we had some questions around what does evaluation look like in this program? What kind of assignments can we expect or tests?
Yeah, it's a good question. So there's no summative assessment in MELM, and that's normal for graduate programs. You don't normally have summative. So it's very formative. It tends to be really about integrating skill, demonstrating an understanding of things as you go. So normally the assessments are really spread. You don't have a rush at the end, as you have sometimes in undergrad programs. You have assignments right through your 9 weeks. You will have a mixture of individual assignments and team assignments. As a rule, team assignments cannot be more than 20% of your final grade in the School of Education and Technology. So it would be a small portion where you are, have to work with others. Also, you are, even for the group work, you are more supported than you are in other institutions. So we have team coaches as well. We have team coaches that work within student services, and they're there to support the team. So even if it's a small assignment, it's 10%, you're working with a team, you're not quite sure of the process and how to make sure that everything is equitable and that you've got a good sort of contractual basis before you begin. We have team coaches that are there to mentor you and facilitate that. So I wouldn't even need to be involved as an instructor, for example. You would directly have that support there with someone who's not assessing you and is just there to support you, to help you and mentor you through the process of working through group work. Again, why group work? Because as leaders in everyday situations, you will be using group work in your future professions as leaders. So it's an important part as well of the experiential learning that you do, that you get to navigate and feel more comfortable, working in those structures. Assessment, again, as I said, the rest is individual, usually split into several assignments through the course. This changes depending on courses. The courses are slightly different. They're designed sometimes in a slightly different way. But yeah, we try to hit for that balance where you're doing the work progressively through the 9 weeks. You rarely get hit, by a really strict deadlines. Normally, the deadlines are really explained to you throughout, and then you get through the work in the 9 weeks. And I hope that answers the question.
Absolutely. Another question that I know it's a bit difficult to answer, but one that came up in our registration page was, how many hours should I anticipate spending per week for this program if I'm working full time?
Yeah, it's always difficult because we try. I mean, if you go on the website, you will see a formal answer which actually calculates the exact sort of credit hours that it sort of represents. It's a graduate program, so I think you've got to look at not so much the number of hours you commit to, but how you commit to it. I think that's the difference. In our format, you can definitely fit this in evenings and weekends, and we understand from the start that you are full-time workers, and I think that's why we're exceptional and very different than other universities where the requirements might hit you at any point and suddenly you have to put 40 hours into an assignment. No, it's paced in a different way. It's suddenly there's a common understanding that during the day you're working and that this is something that has to fit into your weekends and your evenings. There are obviously certain weeks where you may have a little more because you have something due, but it's part of the graduate program as well. I think that's why residency is useful. We talk a lot about the life-work balance, and we talk a lot about how to make it work, how to not get overwhelmed. Because you're online, when you start, there's always sometimes an overcommitment, right? And we're seeing the opposite. Sometimes students overcommit. They're online all the time, every hour of the day, and so we have to, during residency, explain that it's not about that. It's about sustainable commitment. It's about just going in there every so often, so you keep in touch, you get the knowledge, you're engaging with the readings and your colleagues, and you meet your objectives. It's not about dedicating yourself fully to an online platform like if it were Facebook. It's something you can really, I think what we work on during the residency is trying to see what works for most people. Obviously, we don't impose it. It's up to you to decide. But we see that some people decide that they're going to carve out part of their weekend, and that's their melon time, and they do everything during that morning or that afternoon on the weekend. Some people carve out a couple of evenings, and they decide that's when they go on the platform. That's where they do the work. Obviously, sometimes you have to compromise a little because you might be working in a team assignment. So sometimes you have to occasionally, work at a time that works for others. But mostly, I find people are able to steadily decide where the MELM program fits into their weekly timetable, along with the kids and the job and the holidays and everything else. And then you stick to that. And it's more a matter of having that routine, right? To make sure you stick to that routine and you make that commitment throughout. I saw that Lisa had a question about the link. The link really is not very heavy in terms of commitment. To be honest, I find that, again, students are fresh into the program. They're on there much more than they need to be. So usually it's actually been about slowing them down rather than asking them to overcommit. Marlene runs that. She's one of our program coordinators. So it's non-credit. I don't assess the result. It's really more experiential. It's about trying out the services, trying out the platform, getting to your colleagues. But people are normally spending an awful lot of time on that, not because we ask them, it's because they're very excited and they start the program. You can easily finish the link by logging in one evening out of on both of the weeks, logging in for one evening and doing all of the activities in one evening. That would be totally fine in terms of time commitment. But people seem to enjoy it an awful lot, so they spend more time than that. But that's their decision, not something imposed. I don't know if there's anything else that popped up in the chat.
There's one other question from Lisa, but before we jump in, Renee actually had an awesome question that Lisa answered. So I'm going to speak it verbally in case folks aren't able to view our chat box. So Renee had asked, how do payments work? Do we pay by course or a lump sum? And Lisa had shared that upon acceptance, you'll need to pay $550 to secure your seat in the program. And thereafter, you'll be invoiced on the first of the month prior to each course start date. And then shared a link to the payment schedule as well. Thanks so much, Lisa. So popping back into the questions, what's the typical class makeup? Is it K to 12 educators, language school folks?
Yes, I would say am I muted? No, I'm not muted. Okay, the bulk of the cohorts are definitely a typical profile is a K-12 teacher with about 4 years under their belt, 5 years, being invited to start looking at advice principal positions or leadership positions. But that's probably about, I'd say, 70% of the composition, and then we have a 30% that's made of various folks. Sometimes we have people who are already principal because they've gone through the international route and they've actually been able to access those positions without the formal qualification, but then they're coming back because they do realize that they want the qualification for their future. So they're great because normally they're already in those roles and they're also able, just like our instructors, to give you that lens, what it's like, because they're confronted with the job requirements on a daily basis and they share that. We also have as I said, folks that might have worked as consultants or worked in language schools. So they have had parallel careers still in the classroom, but maybe not the formalized sort of K-12 school environment. And they make up for a small part of that. And then we have flexible admission. So we do have a few folks each year that have had extraordinary careers, that have done things not necessarily in a linear way, but have gone and had all sorts of international experience and varied backgrounds and done all sorts of great, on terrain sort of learning. And they bring often really important perspectives too, because they enable us to go beyond just the school sort of vision and to look at connecting this with a public vision of what school should be like and what change should be like and what the public is concerned about. So it's very interesting, and a lot of let's stress it too, a lot of our MELM students are parents. And that's very important too, right? That we have a more mature sort of cohort profile, and a lot of you are parents, and you bring that perspective too. It's not one of the 4 lenses that we've looked at, but it's a very important lens too. And often you have your own experiences of the school sort of as an institution from a parent perspective, and that becomes very important in the discussions as well. So I hope that answers that.
Absolutely. And that actually brings us to the end of our webinar. So thank you for participating in that lightning round of questions, Frederic. That was so helpful. So for everyone who's on the call today, a big thank you for joining us. We'll have a recording of today's session sent to all of you in the next day or so. So feel free, if things are bubbling up for you after this session, we are always here to continue the conversation. So connect with us anytime. Frederic, before we close out, was there anything else you wanted to share?
No, I wish you all the best. And if you have questions, as I said, reach out to the team. I find it's unique worldwide in the sense of the speed of the feedback that you'll be getting from the admissions team, and so don't hesitate. And also for us, you can contact the school if there's something as you go forward. Once you register, if there's something specific as well. From that point on, the program coordinators take that on, and they're there to support you as well. We have a good support team. We have 3 people who support 3 master's programs. So you almost have 1 dedicated person for each. Yeah, always happy to answer any of your questions. So looking forward to perhaps seeing you in the near future.
Yes, absolutely. And Lisa, before we close out, shared some wonderful information in our chat box that we encourage folks who are interested in our programs to chat with alumni. So if you're interested in connecting with alumni who can share about their RU experience in the program and how the program has impacted their journey post-graduation as well, please let us know. So you can email Lisa directly at lisa.murray@rollroads.ca, and she can get you connected with some of our amazing alumni.
And Selena, just thinking, are folks able to access the recording of the sessions that we've had with students recently? About a month back, we had a session with alumni. I think that was recorded as well, right? Are they able to access that?
Absolutely. I will include that in the follow-up for this session. Thanks so much, Frederic. We had alumni from all three of our programs within the School of Education and Technology come together and share about their experiences. And our student who chatted from the MALM program actually really shared a lot about the professional network she grew and how it was so wonderful. While they're still current students in the program, cohort members saying, "Hey, we're hiring at my school. Come on over." So if you're interested in learning about the inside experience of being a MALM student, I'll make sure to share that in the follow-up as well.
Yeah, Cassie was included, and she is the person Celine's talking about, and she's finishing now. She's graduating. She's taking her last course now and finishing in 3 weeks. So it was a good perspective to have someone having gone through the 2 years and being able to give that insight. So yeah, I think you'd find it interesting if you have time to look at the recording.
Amazing. Okay, well, we'll make sure to pop this recording and that one in the follow-up message. You'll receive in a day or so. So for those of you online or watching these recordings, we wish you a wonderful rest of your morning, afternoon, or evening.
Thanks
Bye-bye,
everyone for joining. Thanks. Bye-bye.